What's up, YouTube? I've been kind of away for a while. Some of you may have been wondering where I've been. It's mostly been work-life balance being super hard to commit to, but I finally got some things sorted out in order while I was away. Got married, got the ring. But a lot of people on Reddit, when I've been commenting, have been asking, when are you coming back doing another video? Hey, do you have any videos on King of the Hill? So I'm back today to record a video, make this video on King of the Hill to talk about how you should be approaching the hill, whether you're in it or not. I'm going to start off talking about recharge. I'm going to switch over to tag maps, best tool that there is around to really demonstrate things on a macro level. First hill on recharge, you start off with this bottom middle hill. The most important side of the map during this is this C area. And the main reason for that is just how strong the sightlines it has are on assaulting the hill, but also there's two caches of grenades right beside it, so if you do just continue to control this C area, block those spawns that have the sightlines on the hill, you can also just keep refilling grenades to always have some to throw into the hill. The only other grenades on the map are bottom A and all the way tucked away in pipes. Nobody's going to be grabbing those pipes grenades to refill during that first hill. And you may wonder, like, what about A? Isn't that a great place to try to assault the hill as well? The problem with A, if you come out of top A, this bridge blocks all of your sight lines on the hill. If you come out of bottom A, this blocks a lot of the sight lines, so you only have kind of a sliver of the hill that you can see. And you also come out and you're super exposed to a lot of different sight lines. And there's just no way to really get into the hill from there without just walking out into the open from a bunch of other different angles. So coming off of A isn't great, with the exception of one time. Say you have the enemy team 3 or 4 dead, you've already got a player C, you've got a player hill. If you get somebody in A, it becomes super powerful because then the only places your enemies can spawn are in this back pipes area of the map. So you force them as far away from the hill as possible. They can't really go anywhere without running into multiple angles shooting at them. So first hill, C, super important. Then of course the hill moves to this second area in long haul. Think, where do I need to be for that one? Well, obviously the hill is huge important. But do you need to be in C? The issue with trying to control C is that if anybody comes into control to try to fight you, or if they come back pipes, you're essentially forcing yourself into a piv here. Like and for people not familiar, like piv is thrown around a lot in the competitive Halo scene, but if you're not familiar with the term, piv means pivotal gunfight. It's a gunfight where it's a one-on-one no matter what, and you have to win that fight to not kind of screw over your team. So if you're putting yourself in a situation where you're fighting a piv to hold map control, you're probably not making the right play. So you can kind of give up this entire C area of the map while the hill is here, because in order for them to get to the hill, they have to run through this very exposed sightline where there's so many different places you can be shot from. You can be shot from sneaky, you can be shot from the hill, you can be shot from, surprisingly, grapple, which is incredibly strong during this hill, just because it blocks two different things that you need control. Because controlling glass is super strong during this hill, but if you have grapple, it guarantees your person at glass isn't being shot, and it guarantees you have sight lines in the side of anybody trying to just run across into the hill, so you get a lot of free damage that way. And it also gives you like just general proximity to good spawns for the hill, because if you happen to spawn, like if your team dies and you're trying to come off spawn, you'll either spawn back glass or in pipes, and then you have access to this high ground to assault the hill, which is just really easy to get into the hill from there. So just controlling everything in this circle is really good during that second hill because of what it can give you as far as spawn control goes. And it moves to the third area, the A hill. It's pretty straightforward. Any way you control A normally, like for oddball or even strongholds, that's how you want to approach this hill. Obviously the hill is down low, so you need to make sure you either constantly blow up these plasma grenades or grab them as soon as they're off spawn so they don't get used against you. Controlling glass is still really strong during this hill because it controls crosses for anybody trying to come into A or coming across mid-bridge to get wrapped around. Anything along those lines is really great for you. Even Trippy Box is not a bad place to be just because, again, it gives you cross control. if you know that your opponents are going to be coming from control across the hill here, and you're not around glass, say you were around pipes or you were in heaven, it's not a bad idea to drop to Needler and look at this cross. Just any way you can cover cross angles to get your team the advantage before those players get into the hill, it's a great thing to do. Then you get to that fourth hill, the one down on Repulsor. There's two different ways you can play it. My favorite way to play it is to make sure you always have somebody controlling the sneaky area. Again, it gives you constant refills on grenades, and it denies every bit of space in front of the hill while also giving you access to spawns around the hill. Like you get control of the long haul spawns. You may get spawns glass, which is also good just because it looks straight down into the hill. You can shoot anybody out of it and you're fine. The other thing that this gives you is, well, again, it gives you just control of any of those angles in front. And it makes it so the only other way you can approach the hill is to go through control, drop down behind the hill. And if your hill person has the repulsor, they can kind of solo defend this backside of the hill. And from there, it becomes really easy to get large quantities of time. And of course, this is just two players being considered, so where you're third or fourth, they can position any way they need to just deny this ability to get into C and drop down behind the hill guy. Or they can position more forward on C to make sure anybody getting into control is weak. Second guy fights those people. Another way you can play that I tend to do when I have the opportunity, if you can get into control, which again, this is a situation where you'll find yourself putting yourself in pivs, unless you just hide in a back corner of the room, people are going to not see you when they come through and just assume it's clear, try to run through, and then you have shots in their back for free. It's pretty easy way to get a lot of free damage in on players as they're coming into the 2C to try to get onto the hill. And then as you come to this last hill, there's so many different ways to approach it. The important thing is to always have someone who's not in the hill be positioned a little further back so you block these A spawns. Being top A or bottom A gives you access to so many important crosses. You want to make sure mid-bridge is denied whenever possible. You want to make sure anybody trying to come into batteries or get up on glass is denied. You have to make sure those sight lines are covered because otherwise your hill guys are going to be in a lot of trouble. You don't really want to put yourself in control very often, just because, again, people coming off spawn C as far away from the hill as possible are going to come into control, and then you're in a piv. You don't want to put yourself in pivs. Glass can be okay because, again, gives you control of important crosses. And also bat ledge, shock rifle, even low in batteries can be good because your only job here is to make sure people don't cross into the hill. If they're coming at a long haul, they're going to run right past you, not thinking. If they come off the C going to mid-bridge, they're going to run right past you, not thinking. So there's a lot of different ways to get a lot of pressure on people coming off spawns as they're just like running across. And that's just recharge. There's, of course, two other maps. I'm going to look quickly at live fire. Live fire, the first hill on B. Where is important to control? Obviously, Nest and Nest Bridge are super strong against this hill just because they have immediate kill pressure on the hill. Back tower, if you have sniper, has great pressure on the hill and also can transition to control other important sightlines to deny hill pressure. Some other ways you can kind of protect your hill guy, assuming you're not the player in the hill. Crouching along this area on sandbags can be super strong. If you have more space to get control of these boxes, you can deny people coming out of A, while also being able to get information about anybody leaving dummies to cross through C to help your teammates know ahead of time, like, hey, this is where they're coming from. Pillars is also super important to control during this hill, and if you're ever trying to retake the hill and you spawn in A, like coming out of this commando area, especially if you stack players trying to come out of here, you're just kind of forcing yourself into a choke point that's easy to grenade. So it's always a good idea to have somebody break off and try to come pillars for that alternate angle. So you guarantee that the opponents have to split their focus. And also you have a good angle on somebody's sides. You want to get as much of a spread as you can when you're trying to assault a hill. Then the hill moves to C. This one's a little more straightforward. Having control of Nest is also still pretty useful during this time, but it's not like a be-all, end-all. Having somebody like back tower or top tower can also help. You want to deny 3 different routes to get to the hill, and that's the main thing to focus on with this, is to make sure there's somebody fighting for each lane. And it doesn't have to be that you're fighting directly in those lanes, because again, that turns into pivs. You won't have help. You won't be able to completely deny that space. So you also need to make sure you're in a position where, if necessary, like you can either get help or help somebody else. But C hill, it's super straightforward. Everything's going to be running at you. Just make sure like you are not standing out in the open waiting on someone to engage on you first. When the hill moves to A, it's a lot trickier because there's so many different approaches to it. There's down low from rat tunnel into it. There's key door into big door. There's right across top middle. There's B onto the hill. As you see, there's so many different routes to get straight to this hill. There's not really a way to defend this hill other than fighting from inside it or just winning pivs and lanes. Here's a couple of different spots where you can deny multiple angles. Like if you are, say, right on key door, you can hear anybody trying to go down low and also up top. And you can also just be watching outward. So anybody trying to come out of this way get denied by you being there. So it's also not a safe spot to be. Like if anybody comes past, once you start shooting, you are committed to that fight. You can't really get out of there unless you go bottom middle and then someone could be there. You're just forced into a fight. One other place I like to play from the hill, like while my player is in the hill, I like to be all the way behind it, just because it gives you a bunch of different options of sightlines to watch, so you can help your hill guy double up on a lane, while also not just being stacked in the hill. And if your hill guy dies, you're in position to quickly rotate out with him. Or if he gets low and needs to hide for his shields, you can rotate out with him. You can sort of do a tandem back and forth. As you get to this 4th hill, this one, it's a little counterintuitive, but it's actually better to play this hill from down low. Playing these 2 doors is a great way to get flanks on people trying to assault the hill, because typically they'll be coming from one of these 3 angles. Every now and then you'll see a 4th person come in from cuts, but generally, as long as you control these 2 doors, you're denying the ability for the opponents to approach the hill. And whenever possible, you want to get behind people and be in position to shoot them in the back as they approach the hill. One thing that's really good, if you know that they're coming off A spawns or B spawns, get tucked in this little corner here, right outside of key door. They'll throw their grenades at the hill guy, and then, oh, hill's empty. We're going to drop. We're going to fall. You have shots in their back. It's super easy to transition that into hill control. If they come off of A, you just get behind them, turn, start fighting, make sure they don't have the ability to fight your hill guy without getting shots in them, like put into them as well. Being a dummy door, you can wrap around behind anybody coming off cuts. You can get in the face of anybody trying to come off these ramps or wait on them to push past. It depends on how they're trying to fight it. If they're shooting from up on C, you just try to deny the space, get up in their face, make them take the fight in their right where they're standing. On this last hill, this one is also kind of tricky because there's 2 direct approach routes from either side. I don't want blue, I want red. Coming off nest or tower, both of these have great power control on the hill, but also anybody coming from sandbags has great pressure on the hill. And you'll see a lot of people try to hide in this hole. It's very susceptible to banked grenades, which a lot of people don't really take advantage of that I've seen in matchmaking, but it's super important to know how to bank your grenades on this top middle hill, just to make sure you're always guaranteeing nobody is going to be in the hill full shields without hiding as you're coming into their view. Like, you should never be running out into the open to try to take a gunfight to assault this hill before you have thrown your grenades to kind of land them in the hill. And also, rewinding just a bit, if you ever happen to spawn A and you're trying to assault this first hill, banking the grenades off this white wall can either land them here or right there to deal quite a bit of damage on people in the hill. It's a great grenade to practice. And I know I could do a better job showing this in-game. Unfortunately, I don't have practice editing and I don't have an editor. to really kind of clip stuff together, so I just kind of throw these videos straight in off the cuff. And it's a lot easier for me to explain and just kind of give you the gist of it so you can go practice it yourself. But one other thing to remember while you're trying to fight this hill is that you need to guarantee that you're denying space for the approaches. So like, even if you are the hill guy, you need to be positioned as far up to meet the spawners as you possibly can to guarantee that anybody else on your team that's looking to get into a fight is going to be getting help as soon as they fight. And that applies to really any hill. If you are in the hill, you should be actively looking for spawners in order to try to help out your teammates. There's no reason someone should be walking out of a spawn area full shields and not being shot at by two teammates. The other final thing for this, like say you're trying to assault this hill, say you already have the hill and you're trying to defend it, you know they're going to be spawning A. Just be positioned in a position where you can jump out and surprise people, let them run past you. You know how it's gonna go down. That's quick run through on live fire. Streets. This one is a little more nuanced, especially on the first hill. Like this first hill is super ganky, or janky rather. But controlling C is super important during this one. There's sight lines to assault the hill from the top of C balk as well as C stairs. And it also gives you the better spawn control because as long as you're controlling C and the hill is right here, generally people are going to be spawning cafe. Sometimes they may be spawning PD. That's kind of unfortunate when it happens, but shit happens. But as long as you are in C, especially on either of these two spots, especially with the stalker rifle, anybody that tries to walk through here runs right into your stalker rifle sightline, so it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's also possible to try to play this hill while playing PD. You gotta have heaven control, but the issue with that is if they do not spawn C, they will spawn cafe. Cafe guys get shots in your heaven player. He is super weak before he even has a chance to react. So it gets to be kind of dicey if you try to play it from that side. And you also get kind of denied sightlines because of these pillars and because they can push into back B without really being able to do anything. Whereas if you were top C and they were trying to push into back B, you still have that sightline. And you also have access to these spike grenades, which you throw spike grenades, they blow up in midair. If they travel far enough, you can deny hill space with that alone. And you can also throw them all the way into B to clear out anybody that's back there. Another thing to keep in mind during this hill, like say you spawn in C and you're trying to deny space, you come up to this commando area and you can bank grenades into the hill before you ever push, just like I was talking about with live fire. That's a great way to guarantee you have an advantage, or at least you flush them out of the spots that they're trying to hide before you come out. Second hill moves into C. This is super straightforward hill. Make sure they don't come up C stairs, make sure they don't come down driveway, and you're generally taken care of. Your player top C shouldn't be focused on fighting this lane. This is something I've talked about in Oddball quite a bit. Crosses are far more important than trying to fight your lane, because again, you fight in your lane, you're in a piv, you get fucked. So your job as top C stairs guy is to deny laundry, deny B balk, while a player that's more forward would likely be on B stairs, on B balk, or on posters, watching this whole pink area to deny it. Any of those spots are much better suited to stopping anybody from coming up C stairs. So the main thing here is to try to hold crosses for each other and guarantee you're helping each other. And only once the player has engaged does the person that's on that lane actually look in that lane and clean it up. Driveway is a little bit easier for the hill guy to handle, but also if you find yourself as the hill guy, you know the enemy team are all 4 alive, it's not a bad idea to leave the hill to go help win a fight and then rotate back to the hill after you've gotten a pick or two. As you move to the A hill, this one super controlled from here. You want to deny this lane as well. But generally just having control of A, having control of danger, it holds the crosses, it guarantees your hill doesn't get assaulted. One super important way to assault this hill to try to retake it, make sure you get control of spikes. ATM gets so many good grenade angles to empty out the hill That way you can force that player to either hide or be out of the fight before you push. So it's always really good to try to deny that space. Also, getting up into tires safely is a great way to fight the hill player or focus on fighting anybody that's trying to hide back A. Anybody that's danger, you can, of course, bank grenades, trap those players there. Just got to make sure you force players to be weak before you try to push this, because otherwise you're just going to kind of funnel in. And also make sure you're pushing with your teammates on this one, because you're pushing onto a sort of isolated third of the map, and you don't want to be fighting one at a time, at a time, at a time. And it moves, of course, to shotgun area. This one, A is a lot stronger for assaulting or for protecting this hill than C. Granted, both control these important crosses across the middle of the map. And since the map becomes divided along this sort of midway mark, either one can be strong. You just have to make sure people don't come across, and you're generally taken care of. But A, again, has much better control of that. It has better sightlines to fight the hill, whereas if you try to fight it from bottom purple, you're kind of fucked from this downhill fight. Grenades blow up in your face, you just die. It doesn't really work out as well as you would like it to, and you just kind of fall apart at that point. Other than that, being in tires is not necessarily a bad idea. Being on laundry can actually be super important. If you ever find yourself spawning PD, you know they're going to be spawning either red room or C. Running through bottom middle to try to get on this flank, great way to help your teammates who are already in the hill. Assuming you have the hill and you're coming off spawn after dying to try to fight for the hill for your team. Then after this hill, it moves to the final hill, bottom middle. This hill is not easy to control at all. Obviously, it's super exposed. It's even more dangerous than the live fire one. This one is ultimately where a lot of teams find that 3-1 fight where the enemy team is just slaying and slaying and slaying, and there's not really anything you can do about that. But having control of either side tower, having control of bottom C with Stalker is great sightlines to just deny hill space. The single most important thing about this hill, though, if you are in the hill and you have your shields, as soon as you've slayed them once, look at where your teammates are. Say you have a teammate top C, you're in the hill, you have another teammate B-Balk, you have another teammate randomly shotgun. You know they're going to be spawning PD at that point. Position yourself to meet that fight. You want to get a couple of shots in the first player to come off, and then back down, get your shield, or keep your shields after that, and just make sure nobody that's coming off spawn is going to be able to just push straight to you untouched, full shields, etc. Say, different situation, you have back A, you have a guy coming off of PD, he's already on planners, and another player B-Balk. You know they're going to be coming C. Position yourself to meet that as best as you can toward this right area. You shoot anybody coming off C stairs, you can shoot anybody back C. Your job in the hill is to put shots in people coming off spawn. It is the most important thing. The last note with King of the Hill that I'm going to talk about is with regards to the clock. And it's the same as with my oddball video where I talked about you essentially want to play the clock like it's a football game, especially in the second half. As the clock gets lower, if you have the lead, you don't have to put as much pressure on getting in the hill. Like, say, especially if you have a 3-1 lead on any of these hills, if both teams are 4 alive and you have a 3-1 lead, don't go throwing your body at the hill. There's no reason for that. You're just putting yourself in a position to be the first pick. You're giving them opportunities to climb back into it. Bait the hill first, get your picks. And once you have numbers, like they're 2-3 down, treat that like a third down in football. That's when you start to pass if you still have long yardage situation, even if you have the lead. You want to get your first down. You start getting your time in that situation, your hill time in that situation. Otherwise, every second that clock ticks down is a second you're closer to victory as long as you still have the lead. So keep taking advantage of that. If you ever have a 3-2 situation and there's still 2 minutes left on the clock, like, you may not be thinking, oh, hey, it's okay to play time at this point because 2 minutes is a really long time to slay, but it's okay to play toward both win conditions, where you let them get in the hill first, you kill them in the hill, they're down numbers, now you get easy hill time. And you're in the hill, you're looking at the spawners, they're not coming out spawn full shields. You take advantage of that and you snowball it into the 4th cap, 4-2 victory, easy peasy. Or maybe you get picks and then you get traded out and then they trade you out and you trade someone else out. It's just constant trades, everybody's dying, suddenly a minute's run off the clock, and neither team has made progress in the hill. You're now a minute toward slaying out to win the game. And in both cases, you've played toward your win condition, you've made it easy to win, and that is King of the Hill. I know this is long and rambly, and hopefully it helps. I never do scripts for these, it's all off the cuff. But it's very long-winded. This is a 25-minute video, so good luck. And hopefully I'll be able to make some more videos soon. And if not, catch my stream, twitch.tv/TiberiusAudley. Still going over a lot of the Halo World Championship series. There are so many good series at Worlds. And go native.